In this week's Build Roundup, we're going to be checking out 6 project ideas that you can use to transform your garden. Let's jump right into it. First up is this fantastic garden workbench, and this comes from Carlos. And I love when people share before and after pictures. As you can see, here's the before, and then boom, we've got this awesome garden workbench. You can see he used 3/4 inch EMT conduit to build this, and we can see here's a picture of the frame. Looks pretty standard with a lot of 90-degree connectors to basically create the main rectangular structure. You can make basic desks and tables by just using 8 90-degree connectors in this way. And then we can see that he kitted out the whole workbench. He added shelves using some T-connectors attached to different parts of the build. And then he also added some framework here to support the pegboard. You can see using T's again, and then utilizing the outside, just leaving this back pipe of the bench tall. You can then utilize that and made this framework to hold the pegboard in place. And he's got garden tools up there. You can see he's got soil and other different things down here on this bottom shelf. And then he's got another workbench area here, or work surface area there. And then you can see that he's got some of the coroplast, which is a great material that we've seen in the community a few different times. And we actually ordered some so we could play around with it and share some different ways for attaching it. I don't see exactly how he attached it. I'm pretty sure a lot of builders have been using self-tapping screws just to go through that material and then into the conduit. But it looks like maybe he's using zip ties or something. I'm not sure if he drilled holes in the material and then added zip ties. Not entirely sure. If you're watching, Carlos, I'd love to know. But like I said, we're gonna be doing a video soon on different methods for attaching that. But basically, you can see he added a back panel and side walls and an arched roof, so rain or snow, whatever it might be. Maybe not snow this time of year, but later in the year, if snow comes, it'll slide off, which is really good, and it'll keep the tools somewhat dry. I imagine rain can still get in there, but it's going to help prevent a lot of rain getting on the different things on this workbench. But super awesome. Thanks so much, Carlos, for sharing this. We really appreciate it. Next up is a sunshade, and this comes from Lawrence. You can see that he's got some dragon fruit plants here, and he wanted to provide some shade. It looks like he may be in an area that gets a lot of sun, maybe that looks like a desert kind of landscape or architecture there. So he wanted to protect the dragon fruit plants and added a sunshade. And really simple, just it's 6 verticals with 90-degree connectors in the corners, and then 4-way connectors in the middle, which work really well in scenarios like this where you need to continue a long span of conduit, add a vertical, and then also add a front to back brace that runs to the back of the structure there to another 4-way connector that, again, just has a vertical and then a pipe coming out of each side to kind of extend that long run. And then you can see that he secured the sunshade material with ball bungees. Those just go through the grommets of the sunshade, and super simple. And a project like this that's freestanding, you'll want to secure the bottom in some way. You could do a rung all the way around the bottom. That'll be the strongest way to kind of build a structure like this, but you can also get away with adding some 3/4 inch stakes into the ground. I'll link the ones that we like to use down below. But you hammer those into the ground, and then you can slide the conduit over top of them. And that works really well for anchoring projects like this. But really awesome idea. Thanks so much for sharing this, Lawrence. We love seeing it. Next up is a really fantastic greenhouse from Mickey, and you can see here it is, kind of a wide view of the whole thing. Then he also shared some close-ups of different things inside of the greenhouse. You can see here he's got the door that you go in and out of, and it looks like he used some of the clear coroplast material as well, which is really cool. You can see here he's got the hinges and the gate latch that Billy from Northwoods Engineer designed. We've got those up on the website now if you didn't see the announcement. So you can get those from us, but also support Billy at the same time, which is super awesome. But you can see here he's got the gate. You can see he's got a lot of bent conduit to create kind of the arch shape. And then he's got some material secured to it. Looks like he used 2-hole straps with maybe some rubber grommets, and then drilled some holes in the coroplast to secure that in place, it looks like he's got kind of a ribbed area around certain parts of the build, and then use greenhouse plastic on the rest of the frame. So the greenhouse plastic kind of secures to those strips of coroplast, which is really interesting. I'd love to know why he did that, why he chose that. I think I'm going to ask Mickey if he wants to do a build interview. If you're watching and want to do that, just reach out to me, jake@makerpipe.com, and we could set up a build interview to kind of learn more about this build if you want to share it, because there's all kinds of stuff in here, like this vent that he's got mounted to a piece of coroplast. I imagine he just, cut out the square for the fan to fit in there. And then he's got that secured again with 2-hole straps. That's really awesome. Just tons of great ideas. Here you can see most of the structure. So he's got the arch conduit that he used, handheld pipe and tube bender. I would imagine you get a good view of some of his garden beds. Got a lot of bracing in there with maker pipe 45-degree connectors and a few different places to just add some bracing throughout the build. There's a view of the door from the inside. And here's a view from the outside. You can see there's a crossover clamp adding some bracing. And then again, there's some more strips of the coroplast, which I imagine is just meant to support the greenhouse. And I wonder if he did that to alleviate or kind of keep from using, if you use the greenhouse plastic clips, you'd have to snap those on to the conduit there. And I would imagine maybe that would create some kind of an area for the, wouldn't be tight enough. So maybe by using these coroplast strips, he's kind of, pulling the material taut, so the rain will slide off of it. I'm not sure if that's why he did that, but if he did, that's really smart, and I could see that being the case. So really cool, Mickey. Thanks so much for sharing this. We love seeing it. Next up is another project from Carlos. He's been doing a lot. This is a garden fence that he put together to keep his dog from going through and digging holes in the garden. And it's really simple, just basically quite a few verticals going around the garden. And then they use, various connectors. I think that's a 135-degree connector. And then there's a T connector there to basically make the two sides of the panel or of the fence, as you can see here. And then they're just kind of using the back of the wooden fence as just the back side of it. Didn't have to do all the way around. And then they added a gate here to the front. Looks like 2 doors. And it looks like they just used the T-connector method, which is where you just get a maker pipe T-connector and remove the friction bands. And that creates enough of a gap in the connection that you can rotate those around. It is a metal-on-metal hinge, so it's not the smoothest, but it does work pretty well, and you can get away with it with using it for projects like this, as you can see. Then it looks like they're using just kind of a handheld plastic clamp to hold the gates together and keep them closed. So super cool, really awesome project. Again, Carlos is doing all kinds of stuff in his garden, which is awesome to see. So thanks so much for sharing your different projects. We love seeing them. Next up is a green bean trellis, and this comes from DJ. This is really cool. Very simple trellis. We can see they used some of the elbows, like off-the-shelf electrical elbows for the top connections. And basically, I usually call these single panel trellises just because it's one kind of rectangular panel. And we can see, like I said, they use those elbows up there in the corner, and then they use T connectors down here to add the pipe from one side to the other. And you could do the same thing at the very top there if you wanted to. It doesn't make a perfect 90, as in even on both sides like the off-the-shelf elbow does, but you can make the same kind of connection. The T connector would just sit flush with the vertical, and then the cross pipe that goes from side to side would just come out of the bottom of it. The same way it is here. Just imagine this all the way up, slid to the very top, and secured that way. But great solution as they have it. You can see they added some netting going up and down to support their green beans. They're going to be growing green beans here. And like I said earlier, whenever you have a project like this that's freestanding, you want to secure it in some way. I imagine they use stakes, like I mentioned earlier, inside the conduit that are buried in the ground. You could also get some, cabling from off the shelf and then, pull this to the ground and add some support that way. Probably a good idea if this is going to be loaded down with tomatoes or something, but maybe they can get away with just how it is with the stakes with green beans. But yeah, you could always add that later if you find that it needs more support. But really awesome. Thanks so much for sharing this, DJ. We really appreciate it. Last but not least is another garden fence, and this comes from Northwoods Engineered. And we kind of touched on this on Saturday's announcement video of us carrying the hinges and the gate latch. I didn't really point out this build whenever he first shared it last year, and it's a really fantastic video and project. He basically built a large fence, as you can see, around their garden here. And it's a really fantastic video if you're wanting to do something similar. And this is a really awesome one because they incorporated wood into it as well. You can see a lot of different places that they've got wood going around it and just kind of key structural points in the fence. And then they used maker pipe and conduit to supplement some wood in areas, as you can see. And they're just using 180-degree connectors and then flanges to secure these pieces of conduit, to their fence. But what's really cool about this is a hack that he points out here where, obviously the hinges that he designed that we're selling on the website now, those are great for projects that use all conduit, but he's got wood here and he wants to add a gate to get in and out of the garden, as you can see there, to kind of close that space, obviously, for the fence. And you can't really do that with the hinge he designed because that's meant for, you know, 2 pieces of conduit side by side. That's how you'd use that hinge. So he came up with a hack, which is kind of utilizing the adjustable angle flange. Basically, he's got the end clamp secured around the piece of conduit like normal, and then he's using the adjustable angle, the flange, the base pieces, which you can buy separately if you want, if you already have end clamps or want to do some other solution. But basically, secured those to the wood and then leaves the, instead of fully tightening that or leaving that, or, you know, tightening it completely on the end clamp, you can leave that loose a little bit, which is what he did, as you can see here, and it allows him to create a hinge of the gates. And then he's got his latches that he designed, but you can see that hinges really well. And he also had a really cool hack. You know, whenever you have a fence that you want to keep closed, you might have that, I don't even know what it's called, but it's kind of like a anchor into the ground that keeps the door from opening on its own. He basically designed that with EMT conduit and maker pipe, or made one, where basically he's got T-connectors holding a piece of 3/4 inch that goes into the ground. Then he's using a piece of 1/2 inch EMT conduit with a shim inside the T-connector, and he can just pull that up and makes the kind of latch for the gate, which is awesome, really smart. And then there you can see where he's got the end clamp loose in the adjustable angle flange to create that hinge, which is a really good idea if you're attaching a gate made out of conduit to your wooden structure. So really cool. Like I said, check out that full video if you need some ideas for building a fence for your garden. There's a ton of stuff in there that's really helpful, but this is really cool too, and I wanted to highlight that specifically. But thanks everybody for sharing your builds. As always, these will be linked down below if you want to see any of them in more detail. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you in the next video.